Welcome back to Second Chance Histories, where we explore the extraordinary moments that reveal how healing abilities can emerge in the most unexpected places and through people whose life experiences seem completely unrelated to medicine, yet somehow prepare them to save lives in ways no one could have anticipated. Today's story takes us to Tony's Auto Repair in Detroit, Michigan, where 48-year-old mechanic Tony Salvatore discovered that the same intuitive abilities that made him exceptional at diagnosing mechanical problems in cars had somehow transformed into an impossible gift for detecting serious medical conditions in his customers, often catching life-threatening diseases before doctors had any reason to look for them. This is the story of the mechanic's vision, where one man's transition from fixing engines to saving lives would challenge everything the medical community thought they knew about diagnostic intuition and prove that healing abilities can emerge in anyone who has dedicated their life to understanding how complex systems work and what happens when they're about to fail. Antonio Michael Salvatore had been working on cars for 32 years, running Tony's Auto Repair in Detroit's Hamtramck neighborhood for the past 18 years. At 48, he was widely regarded as one of the most skilled automotive diagnosticians in the region, with an almost supernatural ability to identify mechanical problems that other mechanics missed. Tony could listen to an engine for 30 seconds and tell you exactly what was wrong with it, said his longtime customer, Maria Rodriguez, who had been bringing her family's cars to Tony's shop for over a decade. He had this gift for hearing things that other mechanics couldn't detect, for sensing problems before they became serious enough to cause breakdowns. Tony's reputation was built on his ability to diagnose complex mechanical issues that stumped other professionals. Customers would bring him vehicles that had been to multiple repair shops without success, and Tony would identify problems that no one else had considered. "I've always been able to feel when machines aren't running right," Tony explained. "It's not just about listening to sounds or looking at parts. I can sense when systems aren't working in harmony with each other, when something is starting to fail even if it hasn't broken yet." Tony's approach to automotive repair was holistic. He understood cars as integrated systems where problems in one area could create cascading effects throughout the vehicle. This systematic thinking, combined with his exceptional sensory awareness, made him extraordinarily effective at preventing mechanical failures before they occurred. What Tony didn't realize was that these same abilities would soon transform his understanding of his own purpose in life. The first incident that would change everything occurred on a Tuesday morning in September 2019, when longtime customer Robert Patterson brought his truck in for routine brake work. Tony was checking under the hood when he suddenly stopped working and looked at me with this concerned expression, Robert later recalled. He said, "Mr. Patterson, I don't mean to alarm you, but you should see a doctor about your breathing. Something's not right with your lungs." Robert was initially puzzled by Tony's comment. He felt fine and had no respiratory symptoms that he was aware of. But Tony was insistent, explaining that he could somehow sense that Robert's breathing patterns weren't normal. "Tony told me he could hear something in my breathing that reminded him of the way engines sound when they're not getting proper airflow," Robert said. It seemed like a strange comparison, but Tony had never steered me wrong about my vehicles, so I decided to get checked out. Robert's doctor initially found nothing obvious during a routine examination, but Tony had been so specific about his concerns that Robert requested additional testing. A chest X-ray revealed early-stage lung cancer that had not yet produced any symptoms Robert could detect. The doctor said the cancer was caught early enough that treatment would be highly effective, Robert explained. "But if we hadn't found it for another 6 months, the prognosis would have been much worse. Tony literally saved my life by noticing something about my breathing that I didn't even know was happening." Robert's successful treatment and recovery left Tony wondering if his automotive diagnostic abilities could somehow apply to human health conditions. Over the following months, Tony found himself noticing health-related issues in his customers with increasing frequency and accuracy. It started as subtle observations about people's movements, breathing patterns, or general demeanor that reminded him of the way mechanical systems behaved when they were developing problems. Mrs. Elena Santos brought her car in for an oil change, and Tony noticed that she was favoring her left leg in a way that reminded him of how vehicles behaved when their alignment was gradually shifting. Tony suggested I have my hip checked by a doctor, Mrs. Santos said. I thought he was being overly concerned, but the X-rays showed early arthritis that my doctor said would become much more serious if we didn't start treatment immediately. Young David Chin came to the shop with his parents, and Tony observed that the teenager's skin color and energy levels reminded him of how engines performed when they weren't getting proper fuel mixture. Tony pulled my parents aside and suggested they have David tested for diabetes. David's mother, Linda Chen, recalled. David had no obvious symptoms, but the blood tests showed he was in the early stages of type 1 diabetes. Tony's observation allowed us to start managing the condition before David had a serious health crisis. Word of Tony's unusual diagnostic abilities began spreading throughout the Hamtramck community, and people started bringing their cars to his shop not just for automotive repairs, but hoping he might notice health issues that their doctors hadn't detected. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, who practiced family medicine in the area, initially was skeptical when patients began mentioning that Tony the mechanic had suggested they seek medical attention for specific conditions. I thought it was coincidental at first, Dr. Rodriguez admitted. But when Tony's suggestions led to early detection of serious conditions in multiple patients, I had to acknowledge that something unusual was happening. Dr. Rodriguez began tracking cases where Tony's observations had led to medical discoveries and found a pattern of accuracy that exceeded statistical probability. Tony was consistently identifying serious health conditions in people who had no obvious symptoms, Dr. Rodriguez documented. His observations were leading to early detection of cancers, heart conditions, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, and other serious diseases that might not have been diagnosed until much later in their progression. Intrigued by Tony's apparent ability to detect health issues, Dr. Rodriguez approached him about developing a more systematic approach to his observations. I asked Tony if he would be willing to share his concerns about customers' health issues with me so we could track the accuracy of his observations, Dr. Rodriguez explained. Tony was initially hesitant because he didn't want to overstep his boundaries as a mechanic, but he agreed to participate because he was genuinely concerned about people's welfare. They developed a protocol where Tony would document his health-related observations about customers, and Dr. Rodriguez would encourage those individuals to seek appropriate medical evaluation. Over 6 months, Tony identified potential health issues in 47 customers. Medical follow-up confirmed serious conditions requiring treatment in 43 cases, an accuracy rate of over 91%. Tony's diagnostic accuracy was better than many preliminary medical screenings, Dr. Rodriguez noted. He was identifying conditions like early-stage cancers, cardiac problems, neurological issues, and metabolic disorders with remarkable consistency. Word of Tony's extraordinary diagnostic abilities reached Dr. Patricia Williams, a researcher at Wayne State University who studied intuitive abilities in non-medical professionals. Dr. Williams was particularly interested in understanding whether Tony's automotive diagnostic skills had somehow transferred to human health assessment, or whether he had developed entirely new perceptual abilities. Tony represents a fascinating case of cross-domain expertise, Dr. Williams explained. He had spent 32 years developing exceptional sensitivity to the subtle signs that indicate when complex systems are beginning to malfunction. The question was whether these same skills could be applied to human physiological systems. Dr. Williams conducted extensive interviews with Tony about his diagnostic process for both automotive and health issues, and found remarkable similarities in his approach. Tony described using the same systematic thinking for both cars and people, Dr. Williams reported. He looks for patterns in how systems are functioning, listens for subtle changes in normal operations, and pays attention to early warning signs that indicate developing problems. Through Dr. Williams' research, Tony was able to articulate how his automotive experience had prepared him to recognize health issues in people. When I'm diagnosing car problems, I'm looking for things that are slightly off from how they should be, Tony explained. Maybe the engine is running a little rough, or there's a small vibration that shouldn't be there, or the exhaust has a different smell. These small changes tell me that something bigger is developing. Tony had learned to apply the same observational skills to people. He noticed when someone's breathing rhythm was slightly irregular, when their movement patterns suggested compensating for discomfort, or when their skin color indicated possible circulation or metabolic issues. People's bodies are like complex machines, Tony observed. When something starts to go wrong, there are usually small signs before the major breakdown occurs. I've learned to recognize these early warning signals. Dr. Williams found that Tony's diagnostic accuracy was highest when he had observed customers over extended periods, allowing him to notice subtle changes in their baseline health patterns. As Tony's reputation for health diagnosis grew, the number of serious conditions he identified continued to increase dramatically. Margaret Thompson, a 62-year-old customer, had been bringing her car to Tony for 5 years when he noticed changes in her speech patterns and hand coordination that reminded him of how vehicles performed when their timing was slightly off. Tony suggested I see a neurologist, Margaret said. The tests revealed early-stage Parkinson's disease. My doctor said that starting treatment at such an early stage would significantly slow the disease's progression and help me maintain my quality of life much longer. James Patterson, a 55-year-old construction worker, was told by Tony that his fatigue and slightly yellow skin color reminded Tony of engines that weren't processing fuel efficiently. Tony's observation led to the discovery of liver problems that were caused by medication I'd been taking for years, James explained. Changing the medication prevented permanent liver damage that could have been life-threatening. Sarah Martinez brought her teenage daughter to the shop, and Tony noticed that the girl's attention patterns and energy levels suggested the kind of irregular performance he associated with electrical system problems. Tony's suggestion led us to discover that my daughter had a cardiac arrhythmia that could have caused sudden cardiac arrest, Sarah said. She now has a pacemaker and is living a completely normal life because Tony recognized something that no one else had noticed. As Tony became more confident in his health diagnostic abilities, he began to notice patterns and connections that extended beyond individual symptoms to comprehensive health assessments. Tony started providing what amounted to holistic health evaluations, Dr. Rodriguez observed. He would notice that someone had signs of diabetes, high blood pressure, and sleep apnea, all related conditions that together indicated metabolic syndrome requiring comprehensive treatment. Tony's automotive background had taught him to understand how problems in one system could create cascading effects throughout the entire vehicle, and he applied this system's thinking to human health. I learned that when someone has one health problem, there are often related issues that need attention, Tony explained. Just like cars, human bodies have interconnected systems, and problems in one area usually affect other areas too. Recognizing the value of Tony's diagnostic abilities, Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Williams worked with him to formalize his health assessment skills. Tony completed coursework in basic anatomy, physiology, and common disease processes, allowing him to better understand the medical significance of the patterns he was observing. We weren't trying to make Tony a doctor, Dr. Williams explained. We were helping him understand the scientific basis for the patterns he was intuitively recognizing, so he could communicate more effectively with medical professionals about his observations. Tony also learned about appropriate boundaries for his health assessments, understanding when to refer people to medical professionals and how to present his observations without overstepping his role as a mechanic. Tony's auto repair became known throughout Detroit as a place where people could potentially discover undiagnosed health issues along with getting their cars fixed. People started coming to Tony not just for automotive work, but hoping he might notice something about their health that they should address, observed customer Linda Rodriguez. Tony's shop became like a community health screening center. Tony was careful never to charge for his health observations or to present himself as a medical professional, but he couldn't ignore his ability to detect serious conditions that could be life-threatening if left untreated. "I see Tony as part of my healthcare team now," said longtime customer Robert Chen. "I get regular medical checkups, but I also trust Tony to notice things that change between my doctor visits. He's caught several issues that might have become serious if they hadn't been addressed early." Dr. Rodriguez began referring some of his patients to Tony for what they called systems observation assessment, having Tony apply his diagnostic intuition to identify potential health issues that might not be apparent through conventional medical examination. Tony's observations became a valuable screening tool, Dr. Rodriguez explained. His ability to notice subtle changes in how people's bodies were functioning helped us identify conditions that we might not have looked for otherwise. The collaboration between Tony and Dr. Rodriguez became a model for how non-medical professionals with exceptional diagnostic abilities could contribute to healthcare without replacing traditional medical practice. Dr. Williams' comprehensive study of Tony's diagnostic abilities revealed several important findings about intuitive health assessment. Tony demonstrated that expertise in understanding complex systems can transfer across domains, Dr. Williams concluded. His 32 years of experience diagnosing mechanical problems had developed pattern recognition abilities that proved highly effective for identifying human health issues. The research also showed that Tony's accuracy improved when he had opportunities to observe people over extended periods, allowing him to establish baseline patterns and notice changes that might indicate developing health problems. Tony's case suggests that diagnostic intuition may be a learnable skill that could be developed by other professionals who work closely with people, Dr. Williams reported. Wayne State University's School of Medicine invited Tony to speak to medical students about diagnostic observation and pattern recognition, sharing his insights about how to notice subtle signs of system dysfunction. Tony taught our students to pay attention to details that might seem unrelated to the specific complaint that brings patients to see them, explained Dr. James Patterson, the medical school's dean. His holistic approach to assessment has influenced how we teach clinical observation skills. The Detroit Health Department also recognized Tony's contributions to community health, presenting him with an award for Outstanding Community Health Service by a non-medical professional. 5 years after Tony first began noticing health issues in his customers, he continues to operate Tony's Auto Repair while serving as an informal community health screener. Tony estimates that he has identified serious health conditions in over 200 customers, with medical follow-up confirming significant issues requiring treatment in approximately 90% of cases. "I never set out to become involved in healthcare," Tony reflects. "But when you have an ability to help people avoid serious illness, you can't ignore that responsibility." Recent cases continue to demonstrate Tony's remarkable diagnostic accuracy, with customers like Helen Foster crediting him with early detection of breast cancer that led to successful treatment and full recovery. Based on Tony's success, Dr. Williams developed a training program for auto mechanics, barbers, stylists, and other service professionals who have regular contact with community members over extended periods. The program teaches basic health observation skills and provides guidelines for appropriately sharing health-related concerns with customers while encouraging them to seek professional medical evaluation. Tony's example shows us that community-based health screening could be much more comprehensive if we train service professionals to recognize signs of health problems. Dr. Williams explained. The medical community's response to Tony's case has evolved from initial skepticism to serious interest in understanding and potentially replicating his diagnostic abilities. Tony represents an example of how diagnostic expertise can develop outside traditional medical training, concluded Dr. Rodriguez. His case suggests that intuitive health assessment abilities may be more common than we previously recognized, particularly among people who have developed exceptional pattern recognition skills in other fields. Research inspired by Tony's abilities has led to studies of diagnostic intuition in various professions, with promising findings about the potential for training non-medical professionals to contribute to community health screening. Today, Tony Salvatore continues to repair cars and save lives at Tony's Auto Repair, where his customers know they might receive more than automotive service. They might discover health issues that could save their lives. His story has inspired other service professionals to pay closer attention to their customers' health and has contributed to growing recognition that diagnostic abilities can emerge in unexpected places when people dedicate themselves to understanding how complex systems function. Tony proves that healing abilities aren't limited to people with medical degrees, observes Dr. Williams. Sometimes the skills that make someone excellent at fixing machines can also make them exceptional at recognizing when human systems need repair. The mechanic's vision reminds us that expertise in understanding how things work and what happens when they begin to fail can be applied across different domains, creating opportunities to save lives through careful observation and pattern recognition. I spent 32 years learning to listen to engines and understand what they were telling me, Tony reflects. It turns out that people's bodies have their own ways of communicating when something isn't working right. Once you learn to pay attention, you can help prevent breakdowns before they happen. In a world where healthcare often focuses on treating diseases after they develop, Tony Salvatore's story offers hope that early detection and prevention can happen in unexpected places, guided by professionals whose dedication to understanding complex systems has given them the ability to recognize when those systems need help. The mechanic who learned to hear what cars were trying to tell him discovered he could also hear what people's bodies were saying about their health, proving that sometimes the most valuable medical insights come from the most unlikely sources.